Good day. I'm Joseph Noah. I'm a medical doctor and a biochemist, and I'm the author of Document X, Direct Evidence of God's Existence. The subject I want to talk about now is the fate or the destiny of the cosmos. How will the universe end? Our science has come to the awesome conclusion that our universe erupted into existence some 13.5 billion years ago. And ever since, it's been expanding and cooling and getting bigger. By bigger, of course, I mean that intervening space between galaxies has been pushing the galaxies apart. Now, the fundamental question is, will this expansion go on forever, or will the universe, like all other things, come to an end? Now, the fate of the universe depends crucially on the strength of the gravitational field which is exerted by the matter of the universe. Now, if gravity is strong enough, it will slow down the expansion, and eventually the expansion will grind to a halt, and then the universe will then start to contract. And as it contracts, diminishing in size, it will get hotter and denser. And eventually, the universe will end up in a super dense state, the same state it emerged from 13.5 billion years ago. This scenario is known as the Big Crunch. If gravity is too weak, it won't be able to slow down the expansion. The universe will continue to expand, steadily cooling, and this is known as the Big Chill. Then there's a third possibility, that of continued expansion, maybe slowing down, even grinding to a halt, but not reversing. And the fourth possibility is that expansion, but at ever-increasing rates, and this is known as the Big Rip. The strength of the gravitational field depends on the matter density of the universe. In other words, the amount of matter in a given volume of space, and this is known as the actual density. Now, if the actual density of the universe is above a critical level called the critical density, gravity will take command and steer the universe towards a big crunch. The universe will come to a halt, and then it will start to contract. Well before then, a few billion years from now, our sun will swell up and become a bloated red giant. Over the next few billion years, the universe would continue to expand, its rate of expansion steadily dropping, until it reaches a standstill and the universe would then start to contract. Now, I know that presently the universe is in a state of accelerated expansion. Now, I will address this problem in another section. The galaxies initially flying apart will now move towards each other. Eventually, this will happen at a slow pace. But as gravitational effects become stronger, the galaxies will move towards each other at phenomenal speeds. And as the universe contracts, being compressed, it will heat up. And when the temperature reaches millions of degrees, if there are any descendants around, they will witness a blazing red sky. And matter will now start to disintegrate. Edging towards the beginning state, the temperature rises dramatically into infinite proportions, and matter will begin to disintegrate into its constituent parts, atoms and subatomic particles. So everything you see today, the trillions of stars and planets and galaxies, will be squashed down into this infinitely hot, infinitely dense, and infinitely small state known as the singularity. And this is known as the Big Crunch. If the matter density is below the critical level, below the critical density, the universe will steadily increase in size and cooling over the eons. Now, what will happen is that stars will still be born, but as the recycling of snuffed out stars becomes less efficient, the death rate of stars will overwhelm the birth rate. Galaxies will dim and cool. Descendants at that time will experience intolerable cold conditions. The universe will be filled with more and more cold, dead stars, neutron stars, black holes, and eventually end as a silent, dead, dark, cold world. And this is known as the Big Chill. The third scenario we've discussed is that of continuous expansion, slowing down, grinding to a halt, but never reversing. And the last scenario is that of expansion of the universe, but at ever-increasing rates. And this accelerated expansion is believed to be caused by what is called dark energy. Dark energy exerts some kind of an anti-gravitational force pushing the galaxies apart. Initially, this will happen at a slow pace, but as the expansion accelerates, physical systems will be disrupted, galaxies will be violently torn apart, and eventually its constituent parts will be ripped apart. This is known as the Big Rip. So how is the universe going to end? Is it going to be a big rip, a big chill, a big crunch? Scientists can't put an accurate figure to the actual density. We don't even know what the nature of dark energy is, which is supposed to affect the future of the universe. At this moment, we are unsure of the fate of the universe. In this midst of this uncertainty, the Quran makes the following breathtaking statements regarding the end of the universe. It stresses the finality of the cosmos. In chapter 46, verse 3, it says, "The universe has been created for an appointed term. It had a beginning and it will have an end. But how will it end?" In chapter 21, 104, it says, "A long period from now, we shall roll up space-time as written scrolls are rolled up. And as we brought into being the first creation, so we shall reproduce a new one." So several statements are made here. In chapter 51:47, the Quran tells us that the universe is in a state of expansion, rather like unfolding a scroll. So looking at the first part of this verse of 21:104, only one explanation comes to mind, and that is in future, the expansion will slow down, and then like a scroll being rolled up, the universe will fold around on itself and will start to shrink and get smaller and hotter and denser. And this reversal will be brought about by gravitational forces. And this is stated in 13 verse 2, where the Quran tells us that the celestial bodies, their lifespan is determined by gravity, and hence the entire universe. Another verse which has a direct bearing on the subject is 77:25, which refers to the attractive nature of gravity. Gravity will, so to speak, pull the universe inwards, folding it up like a scroll. Now, why the analogy of a scroll? A scroll is a written document which preserves information. So maybe the Quran is hinting here at the fact that the entire evolutionary history of the universe will be preserved. So the Quran is actually stating here a fundamental principle in physics, and that is information cannot be destroyed. The next part of the verse draws a comparison between the first creation and a second creation. We'll remember that in chapter 21:30, the Quran speaks about the initial state of the universe, which we deduce to be the singularity. Now, since a comparison is drawn between the first creation and the bringing forth of a new creation, what it basically means that the universe will expand, and in future it will start to contract, and like a scroll being rolled up, it will then collapse into a second singularity. It states, "As we brought into being the first creation," so in other words, as the first creation was derived from the first singularity, so after rolling up the heavens and collapsing it into a second singularity, it will bring forth a new creation from the second singularity. That the universe will return to its former state is confirmed in 86:11, which says, "By the heavenly space which is expanding and curving to return to its original state." Now, the contraction phase of the universe will be a mirror image of what went before during expansion. We know that initially, as derived from earlier verses, that matter and the force of nature came into existence in a particle form. And the universe initially, as stated in 41:10-11, was gaseous. It was formless, structureless. None of the familiar structures like planets and stars and galaxies existed at that time. They would be formed at a much later stage. So that in future, when contraction happens, the universe will go through a mirror image. It will once again become structureless, and matter will eventually be atomized. And this insight is expressed in the following two verses. In 44:10 it says, "The universe shall once again become gaseous." And in 56:5 it says, "And the mountains shall be blasted into atoms and subatomic particles." Now, why mountains? Mountains are considered to be robust structures, a sign of permanence. But these mountains will be no match for the crushing gravitational forces of the shrinking cosmic mass. A critic sees a problem here. He reasons that by the time the universe comes to an end, the earth would probably have been destroyed well before then, most likely by the bloated red giant, which would have swallowed it and incinerated it. So there would be no mountains to crush. That is right, but you must remember in 65:12 the Quran speaks about other earth-like worlds. Since they are earth-like, they are most likely traversed by mountains as well. Towards the end of time, many of these worlds might still be around, but eventually they will also be destroyed by the crushing gravitational forces as the universe edges towards the second singularity. I said earlier that the universe will revert to its former state. It's confirmed in 86:11. There are serious theoretical considerations that the forces of nature and the consciousness of nature, such as the mass of the electron, the values of the forces of nature, the speed of light, will assume new values. This will happen at transition points, at singularity states. Now, the type of universe that we live in, the nature of our universe, depends on the laws of nature and the values of these constants of nature. So it therefore is scientifically plausible that if you change the laws of nature and the values of the constants of nature at the second singularity, then a new universe becomes possible. This is confirmed in chapter 14:48, which says, "The earth shall be changed into a new earth, and so shall the heavens." In other words, the old order will be swept away and replaced by a new order. And a new, inconceivable, spectacular universe will emerge. So the end does not mean a destruction into nothingness, but rather a fundamental transformation in producing or giving rise to a cosmos which is utterly and completely beyond human understanding. In 21:104, it's important to realize that the Quran does not describe an oscillating universe, that there have been endless expansion-contraction cycles in the past, and that this pattern will continue into the future. In the same verse, the Quran describes our universe as the first creation. In other words, it rejects the idea of multiverse. It does not hold the view that our universe is one of a phenomenal number of universes, and that our universe has been spawned by a parent universe. Now, before I end of this lecture, there are basically three types of scenarios how the universe will end: the big rip, the big chill, and the big crunch. Scientists seem to favor the big rip. Quran favors the big crunch. Scientists, as I said, we are unsure of the future of the universe because we don't know we can't put an accurate figure to the actual density. We don't even know what the nature of dark energy is, what its future behavior is going to be like. So the future of the universe does not fall into the category of secured, established science. It is still theoretical. You'll find that whenever there was a clash between theoretical science and the Quran eventually was shown to be correct. Now, three examples will prove my point. For centuries it was believed that our universe is static, eternal, and inert. Yet 14 centuries ago, the Quran describes a dynamic, evolving, expanding universe, which was only discovered in the 1920s. Another example. For a long time it was believed that atoms are the smallest units of matter, and that they are indestructible. In 1061, the Quran refers to atoms and particles smaller than atoms, and that they have measurable physical properties such as weight. Third example. While the West was adhering to a flat, fixed earth and believed in a Adam and Eve creation story, which they accepted for many centuries, the Quran was already describing the spherical shape of the earth, its spinning action, and its orbital motion, and tracing our origins to the fundamental constituents of the earth. The Quran predicted this centuries ago. So, weighing up the evidence and the tide of history, the universe is going to end as a big crunch.